All right, so this is going to be a review of Scream 6. I did not like Scream 5 or Scream 2022, whatever from last year. I did a rant on it, and it was on my worst list of the year, so I really didn't like that movie. Other people did, so whatever, but I did not. But maybe this one's a little bit different. Maybe I feel different about this one. It's directed by Matt Bettinelli, Olpin, and Tyler Gillette. I think they also did the last one. I could be wrong about that. I rewatched or watched for the first time some of them, all of the Scream movies in preparation for this. And Scream 1, 2, and 3 are good. Actually, Scream 1 is still great, and I love that one. But Scream 4 and 5 are trash. I still really don't like 5, and I was actually kind of shocked at how bad Scream 4 was, at least to me. But anyway, let's talk about this one, and I might spoil a little bit. But this one starts off really interesting. It actually peaks pretty early. The two guys that would have been the villain of this movie, right? The people, they have ghost face masks and voice changers, and they've been planning to go after Sam and Tara, once again played by Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. Those two guys actually get killed right at the beginning, right? One of them kills this lady and then comes back, and they end up getting killed by the real killer that's actually going to be in this movie. Sam and Tara, and also the twins from the last movie because they survived somehow when it comes to the brother, but whatever. Mindy and Chad, played by Jasmine Savoy and Mason Gooding. They are going to. They are also there with them, and they're off at college with Tara, and so they're kind of sticking together. They call themselves the Core Four or whatever. As a result of the killing of those other two guys, the ones that were going to go after them, now they are having to deal with the new killer and try to figure out who it is. Hayden Panettiere comes back. That's Kirby from Scream 4. She was supposed to have died, but she comes back. She's an FBI agent, and she's also helping them try to figure out what's going on. So just like the fifth movie, I also didn't like this one. But I am not as angry. I'm not as mad. I'm probably a little bit more in the frustrated, area with this one because this one actually did have potential. Like I said with the beginning, with the very interesting way that they start off with the villains or people who would be the villains in this movie that are trying to be the new Ghostface and go after Sam and Tara, mostly Sam, with them getting killed and not actually being the killers. Like, that was really interesting. I like that a lot. There's also a storyline with Sam. She's Billy Loomis's kid, and that's still kind of lame, and especially the way that they bring him back in little visions or whatever, that looks really bad. But there's this whole thing where people essentially are treating her like the Jill character from Scream 4, where they feel like she set all this up, right? And set herself up to be the survivor and things like that, but she's actually the killer. So there's conspiracy theories and things. She gets attacked on the street and things like that. And because of these new murders happening, people actually believe that she's the one doing these murders too, which is also really interesting. Unfortunately, that gets dropped pretty early on after a little bit into the movie, but whatever. I thought that was a good part of it too, and I actually like Sam quite a bit, and the actress Melissa Barrera, I think she's really good. The performances, for the most part, are all pretty good, for the most part, at least when it comes to the main cast. Gail Weathers comes back, Courtney Cox, she's decent. I'd say as of the returning characters, she's probably the worst, but she's still okay. And the scene with her actually was kind of tense, right? It's probably one of my favorite of the Ghostface attack scenes. And speaking of Ghostface attacking, I think that the kills are pretty interesting, pretty entertaining, right? Ghostface does not play in this one. I mean, killing everybody. I mean, and once again, there's not much logic in easy killing people in public and public spaces and things like that, but it's done in a pretty cool way most of the time. The movie, I think, is shot well, it's edited well, especially with the kills. And, you can, at the very least, because I think the writing is bad for the most part in this movie, but if you're just coming for kills, because this series used to be a lot more clever and a lot more smart and be about more than just gore and things like that, but at this point, that ship has sailed. So if you really are just here for the gore, you're going to get that. The score is also good. It reuses some of the other music and things from the other movies, and I thought that was done well. It's forced nostalgia, but I also thought that was done well. I think that might be it for positives, though. So let's start with the characters, right? We have these characters coming back from the last movie, obviously the twins and things like that. I like Sam and Tara. I don't like the forced thing where Tara's like, "You got to leave me alone and let me go," right? Her sister's overprotective of her after what happened last year. I don't think you would be so aggressively like mad at her about it, right? Would they really like get into it, right? Like Sam keeps her from getting date raped, and she gets mad at her about it. It's like, okay, it's really forced. I didn't like that. But for the most part, Sam and Tara, I'm cool with. I like them, especially Sam. But the twins. So I said in the last movie that these characters were one-dimensional, along with the other characters, right? In this movie, they're maybe up half or maybe a whole dimension. There's a little bit more to them, a little bit. The Chad character, his name is literally Chad, and they bring that up in this movie, and I thought that was ridiculous in the last one, but at least they brought it up in this one. He has this really forced romance with Tara, with Jenna Ortega's character, and they don't have that much chemistry, and it feels like the movie stops so that they can, you know, have that romance. Like it just kind of feels forced in certain parts of the movie, but you don't really give a shit. So that's also a thing. Um, Jasmine Savoy's character Mindy, who is essentially Randy again, she gives the whole meta thing where it's like, hey, this is a sequel to a requel, so things are going to be subverted. They might as well bring up Brian Johnson again, but they pretty much are. There's also parts of it where you got to kill like main characters or legacy characters, because it's a sequel to a requel and things like that. It's just getting so convoluted and lame. The meta stuff is just not fun anymore. When Randy used to do these things, Randy was a lot more natural. It's like this was just him. He's obsessed with movies and things like that. These characters are doing that because we need to force it into these movies, and these characters essentially need to be Randy to the point where she's related to Randy. So, just like the last movie, I thought the meta stuff was kind of lame. Not as obnoxious, but kind of lame and forced into the narrative. It was to the point where I thought there weren't going to be any like meta conversations or monologues in this one, but we had to get that out there, and it wasn't great. But as far as characters, the real issue is you have these other characters, which is a kind of a trope in Scream anyway, where you have other characters there, right? Mindy has a girlfriend and things like that. There's a roommate of Chad, right? They're there so that they can either be killed or be suspected, right? Really just be suspected until they're killed. It's just there so that we have characters to point fingers at and things like that. And they have like no personality, especially the girlfriend. Like I forgot, I don't even remember her name. So the characters are still really weak here, other than Sam and Tara. So that's an issue. And then there's it's there's a lack of logic once again, just like the last movie, where I have to ask this at this point, and this is kind of a trope with these movies at this point. They've gotten worse and worse with each installment. What kills people in this? Because characters can get stabbed, they can get shot, they can get anything, and they're perfectly fucking fine. You brought Hayden Panettiere back, Kirby, who was supposed to have died in the fourth movie, but she's just alive, and she's an FBI agent now. There's things that happen to her where it's like, okay, so she's just perfectly fine now, okay. But it gets really bad towards the end. There's a character that gets stabbed really bad, like a fatal wound, intimately stabbed. And it's like, okay, well, that character's dead. That character comes back, and not only comes back, but comes back jumping around and everything like nothing happened. People, it is the same day. I don't even think it's been that long. It's probably been like a couple hours, if that. And the character is perfectly fine after taking a fatal fucking wound to the stomach. I'm sorry, this is getting fucking ridiculous at this point. It just is. It's just getting ridiculous. It happens over and over again to the point where it takes the stakes away from the kills in the movie, because I'm always thinking to myself, is this fatal? Is this person dead? Even if they don't come back again, it can be like Kirby. It's so lame. It's getting ridiculous. This franchise used to be clever. It used to be, pointing out tropes from other horror movies while also being a damn good horror movie of its own, like the first movie. But now there are so many tropes in this thing. So many. Like Sam, the main character, just like with Sydney, even though the killer is trying to set up things and she's part of their plan, they still go out of their way to try to attack her and try to kill her earlier on in the movie just for the action scene. It doesn't make sense, and it's been happening even with Sydney in the older movies, and it's just fucking annoying at this point. These movies have their own tropes now. These movies, especially when it comes to the death scenes, a character gets stabbed multiple times. just like in the last movie with what happened with Chad, the character that gets stabbed multiple times and is once again alive by the end. It's just these movies have tropes of their own now, and they're getting fucking annoying. They are parody level. This series is becoming a parody of itself at this point. Uh, the reveal I thought was really predictable until it turns out to not be what I thought the reveal was. It seemed like it was, and then it turned out to not be that. I thought the reveal that it was going to be and that, it seemed like it was already kind of a lame, bad reveal. The reveal that we actually got, I was actually disappointed because it's even worse. It's bad. It's blatantly aping from one of the other movies that I thought had a weak reveal already. It's blatantly aping from that. I don't care about the characters and things like that. Characters it turns out to be, I didn't care about them. I don't care anyway, just like in the last movie. But I feel like this is even worse. Like this left me just like, somehow disappointed, even though I wasn't really thinking that much of it to begin with. It was just completely underwhelming, man. This movie just isn't good. That's it. I like Sam and stuff going on with her and Tara. I like those two characters. The other characters are weak, but I like those two. And there are some interesting parts of this movie, like what happens at the very beginning. And the kills are still pretty good, pretty good. But there is no logic in these movies. The characters just survive fucking anything just because the script says so. The reveal is dog shit. It's blatantly aped from another reveal from one of the other movies that I already thought was pretty weak, and it's even worse here. And these movies used to be clever. Now they're just another horror franchise with tropes of their own, and there's nothing clever. They just put in little commentary about other horror movies or about movies while doing it, and think that, oh yep, that makes this meta, that makes this clever, and it's not. It's just doing a lot of the same things and a lot of the same tropes that are just tired now. I'm really tired of this franchise. I think it needs to end. So I'm gonna give this utter trash. I almost want to give it a rental because of the interesting things in it, but I don't like this movie, and I don't like these last three Scream movies at all. And I feel like it could have just ended with 1, 2, and 3, and it could have been over because there are some interesting things in this movie, but like if you're not gonna do anything really with them, and it's just falling back on the classic Scream tropes that I'm just tired of, then I just don't care. So anyway, I'm just gonna give this utter trash. I really didn't like it, and that's it. Subscribe and we're done.